boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
Been linked to massive fights off the back of that. David Benavidez has mentioned Anthony Yarde. Now, there were reports that a fight with Anthony was like nearing completion, and Liam's just told us that he's sort of thinking that Benavidez might be next.
I've got a meeting with Eddie this week. He's away in Japan the weekend, and then I'm going to speak to him when he gets home. I think people think the Yarde fight apparently was signed, sealed and done because of Tundi on TalkSport was doing what Tundi likes to do best, but no talks or movement on that fight at all from my side. I haven't heard nothing of it. From what I'm hearing, the Benavidez one's probably a little bit further along in terms of talks and negotiations, even though that fight's nowhere near done. But yeah, there's been minor talks from Eddie with PBC over getting the Benavidez fight done, but zero regarding Yarde so far, so no, we wait and see.
How do these leaks get so much traction and we're nowhere near to a Yarde and Callum Smith fight? No talks at all. A Benavidez Callum Smith fight does make sense, however. WBO interim, WBA interim, and WBC full title, if you like, will be at stake. Callum's bargaining chip is that he could potentially have the big fight with Yarde in the UK, potentially in a 5 versus 5 Matchroom versus Queensbury at a stadium. So how much is Benavidez, Team Benavidez and the PBC willing to pay to get Callum to go over to America, sacrifice hometown advantage, and put his WBO interim strap on the line?
So right now, we're thinking about either Callum Smith or Anthony Yarde. Obviously, those are the two top guys in that division. More likely,
Callum Smith.
Yeah. So then we're thinking about making that fight happen here in the U.S.
This could be a great opportunity for Yarde to take on Boazzi, but Callum Smith versus David Benavidez, probably in Las Vegas, looks like the likely next fight for Callum Smith. It's a fight that could have happened at 168, but 175 it is. I think David Benavidez mentioned Yarde as a possible opponent, as a backup in case the Smith negotiation doesn't go through. Nothing set in stone. Frank and Eddie have a good relationship right now. They're working together, making a lot of fights together. They promote both Anthony and Callum. Maybe they don't want to send either Callum or Anthony to America. Possible hometown cooking on a decision when they can make a big domestic blockbuster in the UK with Callum and Anthony. So I wouldn't take the Yarde-Callum fight off the table. It's only for Callum what's in an Anthony Yarde fight. Yes, David Benavidez' WBC strap with a belt that was stripped from Bivol. He didn't win it in the ring, but it's still a world title. I think most people, not just in America, but I think a lot of people in the UK would think Callum could be a lamb to the slaughter going across the pond to take on Benavidez.
So right now, we're thinking about either Callum Smith or Anthony Yarde. Obviously, those are the two top guys in that division. More likely,
Callum Smith.
Yeah. So then we're thinking about making that fight happen here in the U.S.
Come and have a go if you think you're hard enough.
So the PBC have an open checkbook, and they're going to need it because both Eddie and Frank are going to be reluctant. I'm repeating myself a little. Are going to be reluctant about sending Callum or Anthony across there because at 175, the likes of Anthony and Callum have options of making good fights and good money without David Benavidez. Maybe Benavidez will have to travel to the UK for one of them fights for the Smith or Yarde fight.
That's also going to put me one step closer to fight these guys because I have the WBA interim. I'm the world champion at WBC, and then after I beat Callum Smith, I'll have the WBO.
So there's the WBC belt that Bivol got stripped of, and 2 interim belts to play for if Callum fights David. Unifying interim and regular belts wasn't promoted maybe just a few years back, so what's changed? And something's telling me that the PBC are trying to leverage these baby belts to sell David as some type of champion, although 2 guys have just fought twice for undisputed and lineal status. The question is why did Turkey abandon Benavidez' title challenge against Bivol and then move on to the Bivol BETERBIEV trilogy? Laukowitz, from what I was seeing, was making it difficult. Like they didn't want to fight in Saudi Arabia. He talks about the Saudi Arabia culture, not understanding how to promote fights, and he was implying the fight needed to be in America. Is that why Turkey said he's no longer interested in a Bivol Benavidez fight? Or is there another theory? I'm open to receipts. Receipts only though. And then you've got Zimmerman almost trying to discredit Bivol, exposing how much he turned down to fight David Benavidez on the PBC in America, when he's supposed to be impartial on purse offers and purse splits being negotiated. But then again, he's the same guy who was removing Belarusian and Russian boxers from the rankings because of the situation with the Ukraine. And it leaves you wondering, were they trying to strip Bivol and give the belt to David Benavidez via email.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
Wow. Archie Sharp really believes he won that fight on the co-main event in Doncaster. He looked basically like a white, bad bootleg version of Devin.
He sounds like Eric Sermon, the generic version.
And like, what was he playing at? You can't go to shows in the north of England with that working class crowd who are very frugal with how they spend their hard-earned and box like that. That don't fly in England. What was he playing at? Thinking he was going to get a decision in Doncaster. Boxing like that. I looked at the promoter Israel Asif and he wasn't happy about that performance. He doesn't expect boxers to go on his show and box like that. Just didn't throw no punches and really thought he was doing something in there. MAXI didn't have to cut the ring off either. He didn't help. But he landed some good shots in the 7th and hurt Archie. He won't be invited on a GBM card again. MAXI was the aggressor all the way through. He was the aggressor. He won a forgetful fight. Archie no longer with Frank Warren and Queensbury. Israel is not going to invite him back. And at 25-2, only 2 losses and 30 years of age, I think he's going to have to go abroad and get fights. I'm deadly serious. You're dealing with a country that comes from a culture of nobbins where they throw money in the ring in appreciation at the fighter's efforts. And I'm not restricting this train of thought to Yorkshire. You can't go to the York Hall in Bethnal Green and box like that in front of a packed crowd in the UK. You can't do it. They expect more. I was so glad that MAXI got the decision. Yeah. What are you playing at?
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
Louis Sylvester won a hard-fought decision against REECE MOULD, hurting REECE on the way a couple of times, on the way to a 10-round points decision.
Boxing.
James Flint is finding it tough going outside the Campbell-Hatton fights. Has actually won 2 out of his last 5. The 2 wins against Campbell-Hatton. He lost a unanimous decision to Haytham LAMOUZ, 22-0. Flint appeared to dislocate his right shoulder, but fought through the discomfort. Actually gave a credible account for himself. He's now 15-3-2 with 3 inside the distance. LAMOUZ is now 21-2-0 with 9 inside the distance. In the main event, the WBO women's lightweight champion, TERRI Harper, handed out a one-sided beating. Her opponent, NATALIE Zimmerman from Germany, entered the ring, 13 wins, no defeats, no draws, 3 inside the distance, but was ill-equipped to be fighting for a world title. And it exposed an issue that I'm not saying MVP can fix because it would be unfair to put the whole burden on them. But by consolidating a lot of the major talent in one umbrella, women's boxing can begin the process of tightening up the gene pool. How TERRI didn't stop this girl. I wonder what Bass, the kid, thinks about TERRI not being able to stop this girl. Because Bass was saying that he expects TERRI Harper to stop Zimmerman, despite her being unbeaten. And she was unable to get her out of there. There was a head clash in the 10th round, and Zimmerman was cut really bad. But the referee let it go on, I guess wanting to allow her to finish the fight after a brave effort. But it was a bad cut. She was leaking bad. They asked TERRI Harper about Caroline Dubois next. She said yes, 100%. That gets my fire burning. She said Caroline rubs her the wrong way. But will it actually get made? Eddie Hearn is TERRI Harper's promoter, and I think he's just going to push Beatrice Ferreira in front of the equation, saying, why don't you fight Beatrice? Why are you always looking to fight TERRI? But we'll see. TERRI's record now stands at 16-2-2 with 6 inside the distance.
Boxing.
Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
So we go to the SSE Hydro in Glasgow. Aloys Jr. runs his record to 10-1-0 with 9 inside the distance. Aloys, 6 foot, looks small in comparison to Dave Jamieson from East Kilbride, Scotland. Jamieson was never able to use his size advantage to his advantage. Aloys, a compact, very muscular cruiserweight, was never going to let this turn into a physical brawl anyway. But I've seen Jamieson a few times. I've seen him stopped by Siobhan Clark. I've seen him stopped by Mikel Lawal. And Aloys stopped him in 3. Jamieson tried to establish his jab on the front foot, but he may have underestimated Aloys' jab. Aloys timed the jab very nicely to the torso and up top and controlled range with a very good jab. Aloys antagonised the Scottish crowd at the weigh-in by wearing an England football shirt. Found Jamieson too easy to hit with the jab. And once he was finding the range with the jab so easily, it was almost a certainty when he started unloading the power punches, he would land them too. There was a left hook to the body, which started the sequence for the knockdown in the first round. Jamieson complained that he was hit round the back of the head. There was nothing wrong with the punches as far as I saw, and the referee saw it the same. Jamieson, bit ponderous, telegraphed with his shots, big dude but just too slow, was timed with a beautiful right uppercut which decked him in the second. Showed a lot of bravery to get up from them shots and fight on, but he didn't want to let down the Scottish crowd. He had family in the audience, his mum was there I believe. He just didn't have the hand speed to compete with the very hard hitting, 22 years of age, very mature for his age, Aloys. Third round, Jamieson was trying to lead with power shots, the right hand. Aloys caught a couple, blocked a few on the gloves, took evasive action. Returned to his jab, hurt Jamieson with a big left. Aloys still never rushed his work and was having fun in there, dropping his hands. And for those who don't understand boxing, American style boxing, yes, some showboating can be excessive, but showboating cannot be dismissed in the handbook of boxing in terms of strategy. When he dropped his hands, he threw a little feint, and his left hand from that low position, he came up with that left hook. Jamieson didn't see it, and it had devastating effects. Fight over. Third round finish. Yes, showboating, if implemented correctly, is just as important as the jab, the high guard, and everything else you have to learn in terms of the fundamentals. 110% if you like. And Ben Davison is definitely not going to train the natural instincts out of Aloys, who's obviously watched a lot of tape of his favourite American fighters, and he's implementing what he's learned from them tapes. He didn't showboat in a disrespectful way. He started with his jab, using his fundamentals, using his footwork, his high guard, went to the body. And when he got into the rhythm, he did what he had to do. Now, what's next? They're talking about Vidal Riley for that British cruiserweight title. I'll have some of that.
Boxing. Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.
At featherweight, Nathaniel Collins, 16-0, and now 8 inside the distance. Stopped Lee McGregor, who is now 15-2-1, 11 inside the distance in an all-Scottish showdown. McGregor, I don't want to say he was uncharacteristically aggressive, but I've seen him box more than that. Maybe the southpaw stance led to him reaching with his own right hand. But yo, I tell you what, Nathaniel showed good counter-punching ability. Caught Lee McGregor with a very hard left hand at the end of the first round. McGregor came back with a big left of his own in the second. Third round was competitively contested. The DAZN commentary, led by Adam Smith, thought Collins had the advantage. He was definitely throwing the more eye-catching combinations. Ade and Carl Frampton at the weigh-in were observing that Collins looked very lean on the scale, maybe too lean, and perhaps the weight cut took a lot out of him, but in the fight itself, he was obviously in great shape. He was quick as anything. In an exchange in the fourth, McGregor was a little reckless, needed to tie his man up, and was getting caught by both hands. Legit knockdown. Another knockdown after that, a left hand to the body, followed up by a right to the head, had McGregor down in the corner, and he obviously hadn't recovered, and then a left to the pit of the stomach. It was a knockout, but the referee obviously called it off and didn't complete the count. Collins only stopped half of his 16 wins. Could actually be a bigger puncher than advertised. Obviously, he was pleased with the win. He wanted to fight Stephen Fulton for the WBC belt, which would be a good fight. Collins is currently ranked number 4 by the WBC. Not taking anything away from his win, but McGregor may have underestimated him a little, but I can counteract that by saying Collins probably surprised him that he had improved so much from when they fought in the amateurs. I hadn't heard much about Collins until this fight here, and he looked the goods.
Boxing. Beats and rhymes.
No one can do it better.